All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Trap Talk Podcast. Ask us anything. As always, email us at askus@traptalkpodcast.com. All right, guys, we've got a question coming in from Colton. Colton says, you guys were talking about correcting the score issue immediately, and I agree 100%. The only time I run into an issue with that is when I'm listening to music. Okay. What I do is I take my earplugs out when I move post so I can hear the score and correct it to see if there's any issue. Also, if the scorekeeper doesn't say loss when I think I missed it, I always ask where the piece came off of it. Okay, very specific. If they can tell me where it came off, I'll let it stand because occasionally maybe I miss seeing a small piece. Is that a fair way to go about it, or should I just immediately take it away from myself and say, no, I missed that bird? All right, question coming in from Colton.
Well,
When do we correct?
I would say when you're wearing music, that is a downside if you don't hear, okay, with wearing music.
Yeah.
My son does, and I know he's had that issue too. But as far as the piece, I always say I ask my squad mates because they're watching. Hey,
Right.
Did anybody see anything off that? And if they say, nah, then I turn around and say, take it away. I don't just have a one-on-one with the scorekeeper. My squad mates are my competitors, but they're also watching. So if you break it, you're going to get it. Now, there is that chance that, the scorekeeper might have saw something they didn't, but I don't just rely on the scorekeeper. That's how I've done it.
Yeah, I agree with Rick.
The scorekeeper is final. So, but
It's just one of those things where and I've seen it in so many different places across the country, the scorekeeper has mistaken a wad for a chip. And I think that's the most common thing that happens in our sport.
Yes.
Is a wad will fly by the target and they will say chip when it was really a wad. And that happens.
Smoke, dust.
Yeah, or dust, right? I mean, I see that at every single club, at every single shoot across the country. And so for me, very much like Rick said, I don't want to get back and forth with the puller. I'm going to look over to the guys that I'm shooting with and I'm going to say, hey, did you guys see anything off of that? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, I would say take it away, because if you go to the puller and you say, hey, did you see anything? And he says, yeah, I seen something off the left-hand side. Well, now all your squad mates like, well, yeah, that was the wad. And they're like, this guy's taking a target. And it doesn't really address the elephant in the room of what's happening right there. And I think that that's the best way. I really don't recommend or like the whole listening to music while you're shooting, just because of the reason that you're not really paying attention to what's going on. And when I shoot with 2 or 3 people that are on their music, I don't get any feedback or help from them until after the change. So, they don't know if it's lost bird or dead bird or anything. And so an example, me and Rich, we don't shoot with music, and the other shooters that we've shot with over the summer, they all do. So it's like, okay, you really have to know when you're shooting with someone with music or without music, because they're not going to be able to help you at all until you change and you make that adjustment. So, I if it works for you and you like it, I mean, great. For me, I want to be more aware of what's going on all the time. And that's why I choose not to use it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I just think it does take away from, as far as a squad aspect, knowing what's going on, being aware of your surroundings. Now Tyler says that he can still hear stuff, occasionally, and that. Well, then is it really that great at ear protection?
Yeah, and I mean, my response to that would be like, 1, is the ear protection good? 2, like, how quiet do you have to run the music to be able to hear behind the ear protection? And if you're doing it at that low level, like, doesn't it defeat the purpose of like why we would do it in the first place, to drown out all the background noise? I mean, exactly.
Right.
There we go to. But so I would, going back to the target, I would just say, hey, listen, ask the squad mates, blah 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 blah, and go from there.
Yeah. A question for you guys, just to break it down a little bit further, because I think there's a little bit of confusion here sometimes. You don't, hear the scorekeeper say loss, right? and then you're changing, and then let's say the scorekeeper gives you a 4 and you're expecting to hear 5, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you don't know which bird it was, you know. I mean, that's where it gets really hard to go to your squad mates. Did I miss a bird? You know, they heard it, you didn't. When you have music on, that's going to happen to you probably a little bit more than some of the other shooters, because if someone calls a loss on my bird, I can immediately address it and go, hold on a sec. Right. I think that the thing that we've addressed before on the show too is you kind of get a little uncomfortable sometimes because you shoot, they say loss, you want to maybe challenge that, let's say, then the next shooter is already shooting, right? There's always that, you know, when do you address it? I think we decided last time, address it right away, right?
Well,
no matter what, right?
I think as far as like you self-announcing it, if it's on to the next shooter, then I don't self-announce it. Now, if Ricky, let's just say that happened to me and I missed, or let's just say I hit it and the guy says loss, and Ricky's the next shot. Well, if somebody else on the squad says he hit that and handles it right then and there, then great. But I'm not going to call my own target. I'm not going to break the cadence and ruin Ricky's shot. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Now, if it comes all the way around back to me and nobody said anything, then I'm going to say, hey, guys, did anyone see a piece on that target that I shot? They called it lost, and handle it that way. I think that's the right way to approach it. But if Ricky hits one and they call him a loss and I see that and I'm aware of it, as his squad mate, it's my job to do it right then and there. Hey, he hit that.
Yeah,
you know, handle it.
And I think that's the clarification that the shooters are looking for here, and that's why we talk about, you know, like when Joe Charnigo was on the show, he was saying, hey, everyone on the squad should be looking at the birds. Ricky, you've said it a million times. Everyone should be watching the birds, seeing what's going on, because that's exactly how it should be handled. If I get a loss called on me, those other shooters haven't shot yet, but they're also the ones who are looking out at the birds. They can stop and go, yes, hey, that was a hit bird. And that's
it's their job to stop, not my job to stop. Yeah. I don't get to interject and stop until it comes back around to me, because I don't want to interrupt the harmony.
And you see that. You see that happening.
Either. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
I've actually hit targets before, you know, shooting with Zach, and he just was scared. No, I'm just kidding. But shooting with everybody. And where I've actually seen a piece come off.
Yeah.
And they called it lost, and no one saw it. I didn't stop and go, hey, did you guys see anything off that target? I do not do that.
I agree with you, Rick, but here's the other situation. We just talked about it. I've been on a squad where 4 people were using music, and I was the only one not, and they called me with a lost, and everybody knew I hit the target, but nobody said anything because they didn't hear nothing, because they had their ears and they were listening to Led Zeppelin. And so when it came back around, I said, hey, guys, and I stopped the squad. I look at them, and I say, I'll just ask, did I hit or miss the last target I shot? And everyone will raise their hand and say, oh, yeah, you hit it. And say, well, you guys can't hear nothing, and she called me lost. So can we direct this?
Right? Shoot with people that don't listen to music.
Well, Rick, I know I would love to shoot with you all the time, but unfortunately you don't like me that much. So I got to go shoot with, I gotta go around and do what I can. I mean,
occasionally do I like you. It's okay
if we're talking about the general shooter out there who's getting put on different squads all over the place, you don't really have that choice sometimes, right? And I think that's probably the clarification a lot of people were missing, is that you're not calling your own birds. A good squad of shooters is keeping an eye on that, and then out of the other 4, hopefully 4 people on the squad, someone's going, no, that shooter hit that bird, you know, and then we're good. So I think that's an important
here's the other thing.
clarification.
I hate to say this, but there's some people that are of really hard of hearing in our sport, and they don't hear when it's said lost behind you. Exactly. Huh? What? Right. So I've had some people that are very hard of hearing. The scorer calls lost, and I hit the target, and they're like, "Well, I didn't hear him say lost." Right. And so those are the scenarios where it's kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? And you have to bring it to attention.
Yep. Yeah, and that's just going to be an element of what's happening. And you're right. There are people who are listening to music. There are people who can't hear very well. This is going to be an element out there.
Targets.
Well, of course, don't take targets, obviously. I'd rather take the loss and sleep. at night.
right.
You know,
Yeah, if when it comes down to it, take the loss over anything because I mean it's just a target.
Yeah.
But
I'm not there. I'm not there to debate. And the other thing is when you miss a bird and that bird does not change its flight pattern, you can tell, right? And it probably is the wad, that the scorekeeper saw it. But I think that's the important thing is we have to watch out for our squad mates. We need to pay attention while we're out there, and then it all just
surroundings.
Yeah, you got to be aware of your surroundings. So, Colton, thank you very much. Listen, no one's saying don't listen to music, but obviously we all try to pay attention and be good squad mates. So thank you very much for the question. As always, email us at askus@traptalkpodcast.com, and we will get these two guys to answer it for you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.